Well, that was several years too late. Slender Man is the new supernatural horror movie based off of a creepypasta. Surely you've probably heard about this. If not, just type in Slender Man and surely you'll figure out what this character is. Which is funny because I'm not into Slender Man. I don't know too much about Slender Man. But even I feel like this movie got a lot of things wrong. And just a simple Googling of Slender Man, yeah, there's a few things that this movie didn't bother to do. But what is Slender Man about? Well, a group of teenage girls, they feel like, oh, let's try to summon Slender Man. And so they look on the internet to see what to do. They find a video, watch a video, and now they're hypnotized and being haunted by Slender Man. And one by one, he slowly starts to either make them go mad or take them away. And now these four girls have to deal with it. That's the basis of the horror movie. That's Slender Man. Now look, I was not excited to see Slender Man. The first trailer I saw for it made it look cheap, made it look like crap, made it look like it deserved to be a January horror film. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things that I dislike about this movie, but it's better than the first trailer we got for it. Kind of. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that I could actually think of a few things that I liked about this film. For one, the acting of the four main girls that summon Slender Man, they all do pretty darn good. Now, one of the girls, not the main girl, but the secondary character in this film, is Joey King. And if you've seen Wish Upon, she's in Wish Upon. In fact, she's the main character in Wish Upon. And she was good in this. And honestly, I think all four of the girls did a good job at looking very scared, being very paranoid, and really emphasizing that the danger is real. For a movie that I could care less about the threat and could not care any less about Slender Man, I really did feel like the four girls were in danger because of their acting. That's good enough at least. Now the cinematography of this movie is very gray, it's very bleak, it's very moody, it's very dark at times, and sometimes you can't even see what's going on. But to be honest, that's the kind of mood and tension that can be brought into a horror film through the cinematography. And there's plenty of horror movies that do this, so it's not being creative in that sense. But it does create a specific atmosphere and mood for the movie. And I thought some of the camera work and some of the things that the camera does in this movie, especially during the more trippy scenes where they're being manipulated by Slender Man into seeing things that aren't there and seeing hallways stretch out, I thought some of the camera work in there was done nice. To be honest, I like the cinematography in this movie, and I like the acting in this movie. Believe it or not. There are actual scenes in this movie that, even though I was not scared by the movie at all, there are scenes in this movie that I can see that if you're scared through this movie and you get to certain scenes, they could be creepy for you. Every time they're in the woods in the dark, and the sound of the wood and just the intense sound of the wood moving and cracking and groaning and the trees moving, I think this is a sound that's been done in other horror movies, and I can't think of what they could be. It's either The Witch or The Hallow, or maybe it was just Blair Witch. One of those movies had that sound, and I believe the kind of sound with the wood moving and groaning and creaking, almost set to volume 11. But it was done well for this movie, and It added some creepy factor to all the scenes where they're in the woods at dark. And I do feel that whenever Slender Man is in the background or in the shadows, he has a creepy presence. Unfortunately, what's wrong with this movie is everything else. The story of this film is cliched and it is bare bones as hell. It is everything you expect from a story about a group of teenagers that mess around with something they're not supposed to, unleash an evil onto themselves, and slowly gets picked off one by one. There are plenty of horror movies that do this. Plenty. But usually they do have a different style or an interesting monster, or they do something interesting with the characters or play around with the story a little bit to give more detail. This movie does none of that. It may as well have been created on a factory conveyor belt because it's just bare bones, this is that kind of story, and no real detail in the creation of the Slender Man or his backstory, no real detail on the characters. Hell, even when it comes to the four main characters, there was nothing about them that distinguished them from each other. I mean, they all looked like different people. That's how I could tell them apart, but their personality, there's almost nothing that makes them unique. There is pretty much no character development in this movie. Now, when Slender Man is in the background or in the shadows, that is fine. He has a really good silhouette. It's creepy as hell. But when they start over-relying on his presence towards the second half of the movie, he becomes not scary and just a tall CGI monster chasing after him. In fact, when it gets to the climax scene where he shows himself and he grows spider legs and chases her through the forest, it's just some big dumb CGI monster chasing after her. It just looks dumb and just not threatening at all. I also get the feeling that this movie may have got cut scenes or changed in order to make a PG-13 rating rather than an R rating, because there are scenes in the trailer that don't show up in this movie whatsoever, such as the girl stabbing herself in the eye. That's not in this movie. Or, hell, even the trailer where it shows like this big reveal in the trailer of someone coming out of the woods and she's holding something and the cop cars are swarming around her and the camera pans down but it cuts before it gets to her hands so we don't see what's in her hands. That's not even in the movie either. That feels like a big moment in the trailer and it's not in the movie at all. Even though there are some truly creepy moments in this movie, there are some really dumb scares and it's just really painful to watch. Like there's this one scare for no reason at all. She has this nightmare where she believes she woke up from the nightmare, but of course she hasn't. And she goes to her bathroom and looks in her mirror and then like lifts up her shirt and suddenly she's pregnant, or it looks like she's pregnant, and there's like something clinging from underneath her skin, and then like worms or tentacles start coming out, and I'm like, what's even the point of this? She's not even pregnant. Is it like, what? It's almost like insinuating that Slender Man wants to have his baby with her or something like that. Now look, I don't know too much about Slender Man, so I'm not going to be too picky on his origins or anything like that, because he's kind of like a folk story on the internet. Like some guy created the image and then a bunch of different stories and details have been passed on from different people, creating his origin basically. But so I'm not going to be nitpicky about that because I don't know too much about Slender Man to go into details of, oh, they did this wrong or they didn't do this justice or whatnot. But the way they summon him in this movie, I can definitely tell is completely wrong. All I had to do was get home, type in Slender Man or how to summon Slender Man, and I get how you summon it, and it's not how this happens in the movie. Just a simple Google and you find out that you have to like carve a circle with an X in the tree and then chant a poem or have this chant and then he'll appear. In the movie, they watch a video, you know, like The Ring. Yeah. It's better than Rings, at least, this movie. People are probably going to think that I'm going too easy on this movie and that this is like the worst horror movie ever made. For me, it's not. It's better than Truth or Dare. It's better than a few other horror movies out there lately. It's way better than The Bye-Bye Man. Maybe it's not as funny as some of those bad movies, but it's competent in some of its scares and some of the atmosphere and some of the petrified acting in this movie. There's clearly some things missing in this movie that could have made it better. In fact, I feel that there's definitely plenty of scenes cut in this movie, so it's not an R-rated film. And I feel that if it was R-rated, maybe it could be a little better, but still there would be no real good story in this movie. But I don't know. I'm going to give Slender Man 2 stars. It's a pretty meh movie. I really don't think it's terrible or awful, but as a horror fan, I am pretty disappointed and I wasn't really looking forward to it at all. So, did you see Slender Man? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews and countdowns of other years, of this year, of whatever. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.